I think almost irrespective of who's in charge, the pivot from China to rerouting supply lines, everything from semiconductors to rare earths, which are intricately commingled, is going to continue no matter what happens, who's in the White House or who's head of the Fed. But I think from a monetary standpoint, I think commodities are gonna continue to transition. You and I and Gary have talked for a while now that they're trading from what I would call price and cost curves to functional and value. And I think this bull market is almost a secular.
Welcome back to Metals and Miners. I'm your host, Gary Bohm. Today, we're digging into the hugely needed and largely underowned world of natural resources with Tom McNamara, strategic advisor in the natural resource space and specifically to Critical Metals Corp. Critical Metals is an emerging leader in rare earth supply with primary projects in Greenland. Tom, it's an honor to have you on Metals and Miners. Welcome to the show.
Great, Gary. I really appreciate it. I've been a fan. Finally meet you kind of face to face for our first time. It's been a couple of years, and just love the way you have taken on the industry and really enjoy all your interviews.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Very kind. All right. So, Tom, you have spent decades in natural resources as a seasoned financial professional. You've made a career in metals and mining as a portfolio manager. You've successfully led investment initiatives, advised senior leadership on complex equity and debt offerings, and you've co-managed natural resources funds. You've specialized and advised on market valuations, regulatory environments, and other complexities within the natural resources investment landscape. What do you hope for those tuning in to this conversation today that they're going to walk away with after listening to our discussion?
What I hope the audience and you take away from this is just how, and I know critical's overused, but we are at a massive critical juncture. China's stranglehold on the rare earths is literally a combination, as I think of it, as the strongest OPEC ever was and blood diamonds. They control over 90% of the finished rare earths market, and now we're think that Tambrise is the solution to basically ending all that.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. And I really hope that those who are tuning in right now are going to really stay with us here because there's some really important information that's about to be unearthed, so to speak, in this discussion. So, all right. So, Tom, if President Trump gets his way, we're going to start with some macro here. If he gets his way and he installs a new Fed chair, that leads the FOMC to lower the federal funds rate down to the 1% desired rate by Trump. What do you see happening to inflation, natural resources, and specifically rare earths in that type of scenario?
I think almost irrespective of who's in charge, the pivot from China to rerouting supply lines, everything from semiconductors to rare earths, which are intricately commingled, is going to continue no matter what happens, who's in the White House or who's head of the Fed. But I think from a monetary standpoint, I think commodities are gonna continue to transition. You and I and Gary have talked for a while now that they're trading from what I would call price and cost curves to functional and value. And I think this bull market is almost a secular. Certainly, the moves for rare earths is definitely a secular shift away from China and everything that goes with it in terms of being self-sufficient on some of the most important elements on the planet, from our day-to-day use, whether it's satellites, our phones, our computers, and in the future, robotics, whichever it is.
Yeah, so I mean, we've been completely dependent. I guess it didn't really matter for the last decade plus on China for large majority of these natural resource inputs, but now it matters. we have an existential AI race and robotics race that needs to be won, and it's very easy for China to cut us off and win that race. So we have to get free of them. There's really no choice.
Correct.
So, all right. So, Tom, what macroeconomic, I guess this is a really good transition moment. What macroeconomic and geopolitical consequences could emerge as a result of what you just described, this bifurcating natural resources supply chain and massive demand that's being placed on critical minerals like rare earths?
I think just if I could, firstly, why I think it's so secular and the pivot is permanent, which I wrote for. I'm the director of corporate development at Critical Metals, and I wrote a piece on Substack for us called "The Pivot is Permanent." If not only their market share, but I think of it as three phases of understanding. First of all, they weaponize the market. There's no doubt about that, and there's obviously a global consensus finally after they started doing it in 2011. The second phase I call waking up to the environmental impact of the cost of them taking control of the market. It's catastrophic. I have seen it. Other senior management team with me at Corporate Metals have seen it. It's just literally scorched earth. And then the last and probably the most important part is 50 to 75% of heavy rare earths, which are really the most important, are from Myanmar and a certain section of Myanmar, which borders China, which has been in civil war for almost 5 years now. It is the largest opiate producer, and there is literally tens of thousands of people in slave labor, whether they're at the mines or the call centers. So that's why I would call it literally a combination of OPEC at its strongest and blood diamonds to an industrial scale. And the West has finally realized our whole military industrial complex is basically hindering on what's going on in Myanmar, which is absolutely insane. What I say Tambreez is the solution, which is our deposit in Greenland. A third of it is heavy rare earths, which makes it very, very unique and what I think the most valuable deposit on the planet.
I think you make an incredible point. It's something that Luke Groman, an economist, he's been preaching about for quite a while.
Very good friend of mine.
Okay, so then you know exactly what I'm about to say here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, our missiles, our defense systems, our offensive military systems all require rare earths. Why would China continue to supply our military with the rare earths magnets that is required that could come back, against them at some point?
I think of it in terms of that antimony, which has been by far the most aggressive and first mover for the Pentagon and the West. I think of that as the tip of the spear or the bullets. But the whole theater of warfare, whether it's drones or satellites, I'm saying it's more critical than bullets, but that's what are most needed. And that's why it's a lot more quieter with what's going on with rare earths, because it's that much more important for the entire world than some of the other commodities, which are, I'm not saying anything bad about antimony. I totally agree with what's going on, but that's kind of a singular. Rare earths are a lot more complex in terms of the deposits, processing, and all the markets that they go into.
Yeah, and I guess, staying on the war discussion, it wasn't something that I was thinking about coming in, but since we're kind of talking about it here, with Europe going through what many are calling a war cycle, but at the very least, a defense spending cycle that could be over $1 trillion. I would have to believe that a lot of it is going to, a lot of what they're building and manufacturing and expecting to add to their arsenal moving forward is going to require rare earths.
Correct. We're only limited by our capacity to build. Money is not an issue. The governments have all committed to such a degree that it's basically our only limitation to be able to deliver the products needed to rebuild the inventories.
So, the demand stack for natural resources, but specifically rare earths, is just unbelievable. When you think about AI, data centers, robotics, military and defense, EVs, and other technologies that make up the demand stack, even just one of those is extremely enormous when it comes to, needing, let's say, rare earth supply. But all of these stacked on top of each other, is that demand stack too large for supply, and therefore the only outlet is that the price has to substantially rise higher in order to bring on new supply, but that's going to take many years?
That's a great question, and it's clearly what people are asking the most because they want models on what the stocks how they're gonna perform. But the way I think that MP was such a landmark deal for multiple reasons. One specifically was the pricing scheme, which is almost priced like a hedge fund, 20% upside from the price deck. But when I think about everything that governments are doing to try to reroute these supply chains, a question comes to mind: why do it if China can crush the market after we're finished? So I think the pricing is necessary, one, to create a self-sustaining kind of new industry, so to speak, from mine to magnet. If it's not going to be profitable, why do it? And secondly, I think this is really lost, and this is more conjecture on my part. The strategic stockpiles, which the US, EU, South Korea, Japan, and Australia have all discussed, even the UK most recently, I think of those strategic stockpiles as a verb, meaning that governments are going to have to almost actively, and this is what I think is going to need to be required, to actively trade those. And what I mean by trading is not buying and selling. I mean more by buying. For example, if the Pentagon or NATO has a near-term need for, pick your heavy rare earth, and we want to step on the metal literally to get as much as that can, it could crush other markets because they're all commingled. There's not an antimony deposit which only produces antimony. It's literally a little portfolio of every element that's coming out. So the strategic stockpiles can be used more as ensuring the profitability of the industry. And I also believe that the pricing should almost be a list pricing. When I first started in the business, some commodities were list prices. The producers set them. Where it just is away from any kind of trading market. And literally, we intend to sell all of our production is going to be basically bespoke. We're not going to have third-party spot sales of anything. That's just not how we're building what's going to be the largest rare earth mine in the world.
But, a question comes to mind as you're saying this is that, supply of these rare earths is finite. And so strategic stockpiling by these sovereign nations would imply multi-year, maybe even longer acquisition since finite supply.
Absolutely. This is not a short-term buy everything you can find and put it in a warehouse. This is going to be an ongoing. That's why I think strategic stockpiling is a verb in my book. It's going to have to be actively managed.
So as that would then act as a floor under demand, which would maybe elevate price to a new level, whatever that looks like.
Again, Gary, this is Tom McNamara's thought on this. I have no insight, but I think why do it any other way if we're not committed to self-sustaining supply chains outside of China?
Yeah, makes sense. So do you expect any future shortages or unforeseen supply chain issues? When you think about the geopolitical issues with China, the strategic stockpiling that's going to be going into effect across these Western nations, do you foresee any supply chain shocks that could act as a roadblock or a hindrance to progress in AI, robotics, the electrical grid overhaul, et cetera?
There's a very good chance to reroute any supply chain this quickly, especially as we discussed recently. It takes 30 years to build a new mine in the US. There are ways to mitigate that. It's not going to be as quickly as shale, but it's still, if you look at what the government the U.S. government announced yesterday with the Pentagon wanting to clear a path on military bases or federal lands, that is nothing new. Our venture with Ucore in Louisiana is specifically located on a fallow military base with our agreement with the DOW just for that reason, because it can be the fastest. The Pentagon decides which permits need to be done, who can do what. It's not that we need, and not, I'm not going to call them out on environmental standards. I'm sure they have the highest that anyone has in the world, but it's just a much quicker process in terms of state, local, EPA, everything else in the world, and endless lawsuits to stop mining. It's just that they can go forward, and that's, we can talk about it later, but our news today with Romania is the same exact. It's the quickest route. And our mine in Greenland is another one. It's going to be the fastest one up in production and the biggest one up in production.
So we're definitely going to move over to your company after this question, though, Tom. I just want to ask you, if you're looking out over the horizon, let's say 5 years from now, what does the rare earth mining investment landscape look like to you over the next 5 years and maybe even beyond? And is it different for the companies that are going to be serving the U.S. and Western nations?
I think so. The way I envision the future from currently, I think it's going to be a lot smaller in terms of the amount of newfound companies that all of a sudden are rare earths companies, one way, shape, or form, who are bouncing all over the capitals of the world looking for checks. I think that to do this, and this is a good segue into Tambreez, is the U.S., for example, MP is clearly a champion. Now the whole supply chain needs to be refigured out. That's going to take a lot of industrial processing technology and mines that are big enough and there's confidence enough that they can sustainably pivot away from China. And I mean multi-decadal pivot away from China that have the resource base to do that. So I think it's going to be fewer larger companies, and I wouldn't be surprised over time if the largest mining companies in the world this does not fit in their portfolio in one way, shape, or form, or at least their expertise is not being pulled in by governments to help out.
So not necessarily mergers and acquisitions within just the rare earth space, but maybe, a gold mining company or a silver mining company, a large copper mining company would bring a rare earths company like yours into their portfolio.
I would think so, because it's a small industry. It's just, that's one thing that's very important for all this. It is a small industry. When we speak about CapEx, we speak about hundreds of millions, not billions of dollars. It's, when we build Tambreez, we're thinking $1 billion or less, not 10 billion in 10 years. We're talking $1 billion in a few years. Okay. It's just, but again, we can't put the cart before the horse. We still have to figure out the entire supply chain, which is really going to be the crux of all this.
Yeah, understood. All right. So Tom, let's move over to your company, Critical Metals Corp. The management team is the first thing that potential investors look at when considering an investment in an exploration company. Tell us about the management team at Critical Metals, how you guys got to the point where you're currently at, and why the management team should give investors confidence.
That's a great question. And it's one thing I always do when I look at investments and why I ended up where I am. Tony Sage, the CEO, is a serial entrepreneur. He's had great success over the years of finding great mining assets and building them and moving them on and finding them. He doesn't win every one, but he's got a great track record. Greg Barnes is a legendary exploration geologist out of Australia. He found Tambreez almost 20 years ago. And there's just great consistency in both of them in terms of the vision for this asset. We're a young company. We're a small company. We're growing up quickly. I am very privileged to join the team. It's a great team. We're all have a lot of experience, and we all can tell you the same thing. This is the most excited we've ever been in our mining careers in terms of the asset base and the outlook for the industry. And we will continue to grow and add on to our technical team. Obviously, the lesson for us today internally, which we knew, is now we need to build a mine. and that's not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of work going into it, and we are prepared. We're fortunate. It's a whiteboard. I call it a mining engineer's dream. This is going to be, I think, the greatest mine ever built, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
It's very exciting. All right, so Tom, back in October, Critical Metals Corp announced access to $50 million in finance. What do you expect the company to allocate this towards, and how long is the cash runway currently?
We've done several deals. Both companies have just over $100 million, and both companies are called European Lithium. So we have there's a lot, Gary, which we need to do a lot of drilling and engineering studies as soon as the weather breaks early next year. We noted today our feasibility is being pushed out a little bit. That's because we have so many engineering studies, and our understanding of the asset is growing exponentially every day in terms of how we're going to get after it. The best way for us, the best way for Greenland, its people and the environment. So we have a lot, we have plenty of money to go all through next year, and we have plenty of options. In fact, the way I think of it is there are some we're going to have to say no to in terms of that. That's the position we're in terms of. So we're not looking for a higher bid to do a big equity issuing or anything. We're in multiple conversations with multiple governments and off takers at all sorts of levels. We continue to work hard at that. And again, our biggest concern is who we say no to.
It's a good place to be. So, all right. So Tom, recently Critical Metals Corp appointed Rear Admiral Peter Stamatopoulos to its advisory board.
Yes.
What was the rationale behind this move and its significance of it moving forward?
The significance of the Admiral is a lot of it is logistics and basically having the discipline of a military operation in terms of logistics needed to build a new mine. It's kind of a different set. Again, this is not a new mine in an existing mining district, whether it's in the Andes or in Australia or Nevada. This is, for this kind of operation, this is brand new. There's mining in Greenland, but nothing close to this kind of a scope. We're going to build a port. We're going to have a massive impact on the people of Greenland and the country in terms of employees. So we want to make sure we're doing it right, and we're covering and looking at it from all angles. But first and foremost, just the discipline engineering aspect of the long term and beyond stock price performance of impacting people's lives and the global economy.
So currently there is no infrastructure there, or is there a little bit of infrastructure in and out of the area?
Currently boat and chopper.
Boat and chopper. So one of the areas that the Admiral is going to assist with is the execution.
Advising. The Admiral's on an advisory board, and it's just to give confidence that we are doing this right.
I got you.
We will be as measured and as disciplined, as diligent as possible. And it's one of our guardians to look over us to make sure that everything is going as would be done, pulling from all their experience in their verticals, such as the military.
It's a very good guardian to have, and an access point into the military to be able to provide product at some point.
Correct.
Yeah. All right. So you mentioned earlier a feasibility study that was completed, or maybe it's ongoing. Can you share about it and its timing?
Yes, it's very important because today we updated it. Yeah, a feasibility study to me for any company is a snapshot in time of basically what I would call a confirmation of the idea of it being able to go forward, which we've done in our PEA before. So what has happened is in the last several months, we've had a new team come in and spend about a month in Greenland. I've been asking a lot of questions since I started. What's the best way to get after it? And as we've been going through it with our team and with Nearest, who's running our feasibility study, it's a well-known Danish engineering company, of there are better ways to get after the asset. We know what the deposit is. We're learning more about it. We've been drilling it aggressively, testing it. It's just given us much better ideas. And as we had in our release today, we believe that we can take the head grades going in from around 1% to over 3%. Economically, that's a home run. That's spectacular with the same infrastructure. So that is what we know. And we're working diligently. We will have an updated on the feasibility, but we have so much going on in terms of our engineering. Again, Tambreez, we believe, is going to be the cleanest, greenest mine in terms of running on 100% hydro and tidal power. Also, we're going to use conveying systems. We're going to use AI sorting in the mine. It's going to be a very high-tech mine, and we have a lot of ideas, and our vendors have a lot of ideas on the most efficient way to extract this. Again, we're going to be there for 100 years mining this asset. So again, we want to do it right. We want to use all the available technology and input, and we'll have a updated feasibility study mid-year. It's only 6 months away. I mean, people act like it's going to be 5 years. Again, I understand that it takes 30 years to build a mine in the U.S. This is very different. We will be firmly knowing what we're doing by mid next year in terms of how we're actually going to start our pit, our hill pit.
Tom, pit. What else can you tell us about the assets that are in Greenland in terms of, mineral deposits, size, what other minerals are in there, et cetera?
There's a small mining industry in Greenland. We feel that an extra responsibility that we are opening up Greenland potentially to becoming a much bigger mining district. That's for the Greenland people to decide. The natural resource endowment is spectacular and not just hard rock mining. So it depends what they would want to do. We feel that we've got the onerous of the industry's reputation on our shoulders to make sure we do it right. Again, for Greenland, for the people of Greenland, but also for the industry, to show them mining is a good industry in terms of its contribution to overall economies and society.
Absolutely. All right. So, Tom, today a press release was shared by Critical Metals Corp that they executed a term sheet for a 50-50 joint venture with EU and NATO member Romania. And it's creating a fully integrated mine to processing supply chain for long-term security for the European manufacturing and national security sectors. What can you tell us about this deal?
It's a spectacular deal. It's the first of its kind in terms of mine to magnet. And I mean one mine to one magnet facility. It's the full gamut. Romania makes a ton of sense. For just an update on Romania, a NATO member, EU, very strong US ally, second to Germany in terms of housing US troops, and the largest custody holder of the US nuclear arsenal. And they have very high tech nuclear capabilities. If you look at the downstream processing of rare earths currently in the world, there's one other place outside of China that can do mine to magnet. It's France, because of their nuclear industry. They self-process their own rods. So does Romania. That route to rare earth separation has been commingled in siblings since the Manhattan Project, literally. And that is the route. The fluoride salt route from mine to magnet is the route we have chosen with the Romanian government. We're happy to do so, and we believe that currently is going to be the most comprehensive and quickest way to market. They too, like our military bases, are doing it at the highest level of government, so they can build it as fast as they can build it. And we believe Tambreez can supply them as fast as we can supply them and just have the most secure, almost one supply chain. And that is obviously open to NATO. US is a huge partner in NATO. It includes Europe and NATO, which includes the US. And that this is not shunning the US, excluding the US. US is well on top of this agreement today with the Romanian government.
What an amazing deal. I mean, so between the deposit, this deal, the financing, the admiral, Critical Metals is extremely well positioned moving forward.
Yes.
So, okay, so with that, what are the potential pitfalls, Tom, to Critical Metals Corp broader strategy of development and where things could possibly go wrong here?
The pitfall is ourselves. We have the responsibility of delivering on our promises and executing the entire chain to get this mine up into production. Again, we have a lot to work to do. We will be in communication. We have to hire people. We're building a new mine. This is a tremendous endeavor. We're adding the right people. We're going to need people from Greenland to operate the mine on a large scale. We need truck drivers, we need engineers, we need electrical engineers, we need carpenters, we need first responders. There's a lot that's going to need to be done to do this right. That's on us. Secondly, and less so, a new administration comes in and they love China, China loves them, and we're drowning in rare earths. I don't think that's on the table.
No, that seems a little far-fetched, but okay, well, I appreciate that outline there. So let's talk about the stock here for a moment and the management team. Has the management team been buyers of the stock in 2025 and plan to in 26? And could you share what some of the key strengths that you want investors to assess when considering an investment in Critical Metals Corp?
I would say for management, I'm not exactly sure. I'd say we're all paid in stock. Our income is primarily stock. So we're all vested. We have a high insider ownership. We're very cognizant of more shares and dilution. So we're all in this together with a common interest. I'd say I think first and foremost, rare earths is still a early, mostly retail trade. And nothing against retail, but it's not, I don't think it's gone fully institutional. I think part of that is a combination of market size when we're in multi-trillion market cap companies. And it's a lot to ask. We're rebuilding an entire supply chain. It's not like building a new factory. We have to build from again, mine to magnet. There's a lot to go through. And you can have what you think are more comprehensive solutions, whether it's MP, but that's all lights. I think Critical Metals becomes base load for the West of supplying all critical metals, heavies and lights. And the whole point of this exercise, we are the biggest piece of that pie.
That's interesting. And you made me think about the executive order that Trump signed. I think it was in August, which sometime in 26, I believe, maybe in the first quarter, 401ks will now be opened up to investing in commodities, natural resources, just alternative type investments that they've essentially been blocked from investing in up until now. Are you expecting that to change in a positive way for the natural resource sector moving forward, considering where we are in history right now?
I think there's a very good chance, but as you know, buying hard assets is not easy. And I remember balking, this is Tom McNamara speaking. I remember balking at silver years ago at $16 because if I wanted to buy any decent amount of it, I was paying 28 because of the premiums. And then you go through having it delivered, then, I need a safe. So the ETFs make that a lot easier, a lot more accessible. And that's again, just I think some of that's happening because I joke around with some of my friends. Gary, if you were on a desert island for 5 years and I came back and I rescued you, so what's going on in the world? I said, oh, Gary, there's talk of recession in Europe, Japan. There's war in Europe. The China housing market's going to be down double digit again. You go, oh my God, it's copper $2? I go, no, Gary, it's almost five. So some of that is kind of happening. It's commodities are all in, the metals are in very good supply demand situations. And again, other than what we're doing in rare earths with the whole supply chain moving, there aren't any quick fixes.
No, and
So I think we're up and to the right or continually of high pricing. And again, we're going to move away from cost curves and price to functional value.
so, oh yeah, and so it sounds to me like you're saying that for the foreseeable future, years to come, that it's going to be a supply demand issue across the board in the natural resource sector, which is going to be good for the sector and kick off a new CapEx cycle. If you had to look 5 years out, I know you're often to the right. I know you're saying, value here, but it just looking 5 years out, where is Critical Metals Corp at that point?
I think we're the Silicon Valley mining stock.
Wow. The new so the Mag 8 Critical
They're going to
Metals
be
is
our
part.
customers, and we're going to have the coolest mine in the world.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, that's exciting. I've really enjoyed the conversation. It's been an exciting discussion, Tom, who is the strategic advisor in the natural resource space and specifically to Critical Metals Corp. Before we wrap up here with Tom, join the quickly growing community and receive a free report. It's titled, If You Don't Own Gold, You Know Neither History Nor Economics. That's a famous quote by investing legend Ray Dalio. That's also the name of the report you'll receive. I'm positive also that you've been enjoying the conversation Tom and I have been having. Please let him know. Hit that like and subscribe button and leave a comment below the video. All right, so Tom, let's finish up with this. Let's have you share a key takeaway that you want the viewers to keep in mind. It could be about today's rare earths, setup. It could be the macroeconomic setup, whatever you want that you want to leave with folks, and then let everyone know where they can learn more about your work and how they can connect with you and learn about Critical Metals Corp.
I would say from today, and thank you again, Gary, anyone who reads our release should take a step back and a pause and a reset of how they're thinking about how this realigning, specifically the rare earth supply chain, is going to happen. We put it out in black and white today. This is how it's going to be done. You can find us at Critical Metals Corp. We have a website. I also have a piece I put on Substack for us. And Gary, I am head of corporate development and IR at Critical Metals Corp. You can find me, start with our website, and happy to talk to anybody about it. But I think today's release, again, is a reset for how to think about from mine to magnet in the repositioning of the global rare earth supply chain.
It's very exciting, and I will have all the information up on the screen and also in the description area. So folks, you can click it and just hop on over to get over to Tom and Critical Metals Corp and read up on the release, read up on the Admiral, read up on the deposit, just read up on everything that's going on there. Have a look at their stock. I believe it's over $10 today, the last time I checked.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and it had a nice bounce after that. It kind of got caught up in the gold, silver resource fall after the peak
Right.
in October. But I did notice after looking at it that it bounced nicely about a week or two ago, and it's looking very solid right now. So everyone have a look at the stock as well. Tom, thank you for coming on to Metals and Miners. You've been really generous with your time, analysis, and ideas, and I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun spending the time with you and catching up here, not just over the phone. I look forward to having you back here with us at some point soon. And everybody else, thank you for watching.
Great. Thanks, Gary. Bye, everyone.
Join the quickly growing community and receive a free report. It's titled, If You Don't Own Gold, You Know Neither History Nor Economics. That's a famous quote by investing legend Ray Dalio. That's also the name of the report you'll receive.